And we're talking about menopause and alcohol. Yes.
Menopause and alcohol. Right,
That's
here we go.
On lots of tangents. As we
always do. Right, once again, we've forgotten what episode it is.
You said 14.
I think it's 14. I think it's 14.
It's been a wee while.
The Americans say, it's been a minute. It's been more than a minute, hasn't it?
It's been quite a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
When was it? It was before Christmas. We did our wee Christmas one.
Before Christmas, when we did one that was all audio and we messaged each other. Which I really enjoyed, actually. I thought it was quite intimate.
And it was quite interesting that we had very similar answers. We never rehearsed. We didn't speak about what we were going to say.
Do you do this? This is a question completely not what the subject is that we're going to talk about today. But do you have... I have really intimate conversations with my closest friends on WhatsApp, and we hardly ever speak live. But they are more intimate because we leave each other vocal messages. I know we do it, but I do it with a lot of my girlfriends, actually, and it works really well, doesn't it?
I do too, because a lot of the people who I have intimate conversations with, interestingly enough, some of them are people I've never even met in real life. It's connections I've made online.
Yes.
During the pandemic. And we speak about some deep stuff. So yes. Although I do also give myself into
you just put your hand in the air when you went there.
Although, well, this is to myself.
No,
I'm giving myself a wee telling off, because sometimes I think I do it to the detriment of actually picking up a phone or meeting somebody for a coffee.
That's
and I'm a
really
bit naughty like that.
Because one of my closest friends from a long way back, or I think we've drifted a little bit now, but anyway, one of my closest friends from a long way back, I finally spoke to him on a live conversation, and I realised I haven't done that for probably 2 years, which is terrible, isn't it? It's a long time. Yes. And in that time, he's got divorced, found a new woman, and moved house.
A lot can happen.
That's a lot, isn't it?
And we think
I knew that.
Know.
I did know all of that.
Yeah, but sometimes we think we know because... like especially like us, because your life is all over social media, but parts of your life are all over social media, and that's where it's people will have gone through big things, and then I think actually before social media I would have picked up the phone, I would have gone and met them for a coffee.
I used to write letters.
Yeah, I love.
I did promise myself last year I would try and write letters again, and I didn't do it.
Love receiving a letter.
I know, that's the thing though, isn't it? I love receiving something, so I think this year I'm not going to put it down as a resolution, but as an intention. And it could just be like a card. Do you know what I mean?
I just got one, actually. There's a lady I met online, and I've met her in real life, Jilly. If you're watching, Jilly, I love you. And she sent me one. I received it just the other day. And it is. It's one of those things when you go out to the post box now, and because it's so unusual for it not to be an Amazon parcel. It's like, it's a handwritten
or another
envelope.
Parcel, so that we spread the publicity and the advertising.
But to see a handwritten envelope, and then her card was lovely, just really nice,
really nice,
thoughtful.
And the fact that someone has actually written that with their hand, that sounds silly, doesn't it? But do you know what I mean? That's actually, you picked up a pen and just had the intention of writing something down.
It was beautiful, and she'd folded up. There is a name for it. I'm sure it's a Japanese name, but a little heart. She'd taken the heart. No, it wasn't that. She said something else. I think it's called something what she did. But it was a beautiful little heart made out of colour paper. It was lovely. Anyway, Jilly, thank you. It meant
so. It's been a while. And it's been Christmas. We've both been sick during that time as well, as have many people with flu, etc. But we wanted to talk about something very specific, and we're going to be quite efficient today. But we wanted to talk about alcohol and the menopause. And before we go any further, we both watched some podcast, or listened and watched to some podcasts recently. And my comment is often, I don't like being shamed or feeling shamed.
Nor do I.
So we're not doing that. We are not doing that here. But the reason I want to talk about it is we live in France, and wine is just like not even considered alcohol, really, is it? It's really bad. But that's not even considered an alcohol. It's just considered drink with meal, basically, or just, like you'd have a glass of water almost. Which is bad, and it's almost cheaper to drink wine, right?
So bad. So integrated in the culture.
So integrated into the culture.
Elsewhere too, but yeah.
I like my glass of wine. I try and have a night, if not 3 a week, where I'm not drinking anything.
Which is good.
Which is not too bad. I can stick to a night really easily. I do like a glass of wine with my meal, and I do like a glass of wine, either or, that is. When I see my partner in the evening, it's one of our moments, and we try and do like once or twice a week where we're not drinking any alcohol when we're doing that. But I don't feel guilty about it, and I getting up and doing everything that I need to do, and I'm pretty on form, etc. But Jill, my lovely partner in crime here, a few years ago did it wasn't a year no beer, was it? It was a month to start off with.
I signed up, so it was just before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Now I now know, but I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
That perimenopause was probably playing a huge part in the way I was feeling.
How old were you then?
So this is coming up for 5 years ago. So I must have been about just over 45, 46.
Yeah. Okay. And you don't often click, do you, straight away that, oh, these are perimenopausal symptoms?
No, because what I was feeling was, so what I'm going to say, it was linked to alcohol.
Right.
I have drank since I was, 16, 17.
Very embedded in the culture in Scotland as well.
For sure. University. Like most people, you know, it's kind of a quite a young age where you're just finding yourself. It kind of all got a bit fuzzy because alcohol came in, and it was just, I could not imagine my life without alcohol.
Right.
I used it for celebrations, commiserations, end of a stressy day, everything. You know, if I did a sporting event, it was the first thing. Afterwards, a glass of wine or a beer to celebrate everything. And as you say, especially out here. So I loved it.
Not just out here, because the podcast that we did listen to, we both listened to a few of them, the same ones, at different times. But it's very embedded into the British culture.
Oh, for sure. It's
it?
more so the binge drinking, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the bad thing.
That's true, actually.
I have very much binge drinking tendencies. I'm such an all or nothing person. So I love the whole have a few drinks, larger than life. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. But if that was just happening once in a blue moon, fair enough. But because of the French cultural thing, the two combined. So on the one hand, I was partying about twice a week. And then I was also having my little daily glass or two of wine. So over the course of a whole week, I was probably consuming quite a lot without ever thinking I had a problem with alcohol. Yeah. But it just hit me about 5 years ago. This is going to sound a bit out there, but I was feeling I was waking up every morning, not hungover, but just jaded, dreading going to work, just feeling like I'd lost my zest for life. And I wasn't thinking that alcohol was responsible for that. I still don't. But every morning, it wasn't helping. And every morning I would get out of my bed and I'd walk across my bedroom and I'd walk past this picture that I've got several pictures on my wall of me and my dad. I was a daddy's girl, so I lost my dad 10 years now, so it would have been 5 years before this happened. I swear I would hear his voice in my head saying, come on, Jilly, you're better than this. I feel quite emotional saying that. It's and I could hear it, and it was strong. And I'd be like, I know, something needs to change, but I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And then one day, it was like, I'm going to take a break from the booze. So I signed up for a 3-month challenge, 90-day challenge.
That's it, 90 days.
And, you know, that to me was massive. I was like, how, you know, I remember getting through the first 5 days, first 10 days. But long story short, I did it. I discovered very, very quickly, I think on day 5, I was sitting there, I started crying when I woke up, and I don't think I stopped crying until I went to my bed, because I suddenly realized, whoa, it's not the alcohol that's the issue. Alcohol is my coping mechanism. I am drinking because I don't really like myself, and I don't like my life. I'm bored. I'm unfulfilled. I've no confidence in myself, no self-belief. And when I pour a glass of wine in my system, I don't feel any of that. You know what I mean? I pull a glass of wine and suddenly life's exciting. When the reality is I'm sitting on the couch watching Coronation Street, and excuse my French, I'm bored shitless. But you put a glass of wine into that equation and everything suddenly looks exciting. So when I took the wine away,
it was a bit of a
it was like crap. It didn't happen overnight, but that was the start of a beautiful journey of transformation. So I then didn't drink, I didn't touch a drop for a year and a half. And then since then, I like a glass of wine. We've had some great nights, but I love how I feel. I actually like me and how I feel both physically and mentally a whole lot better when I don't drink. But the reason I have an occasional drink is for the connection bit that you spoke about. Like I love having a glass of wine, the odd glass of wine with my partner, or coming around here and we'll, have some wine and a bit of a giggle. I like that occasionally.
But have you stopped the sort of binge side of it?
Even then.
What do you mean?
So I think I'm not being, that's one thing I want to say is I am not being preachy either, because I love a glass of wine. But I always say it stopped loving me. And you notice a difference. I mean, it's a fact. I know so much about it now, but even one glass of wine or once every couple of days, I notice a difference in my anxiety levels, in my sleep. And it's all of these things, isn't it? Because it's alcohol. The fact is, and this is the part that sounds preachy, it is a poison. It's a form of ethanol that we put into our body, and that is harmful to, a natural organism. But we do it. We've all got our reasons for doing it. But the cortisol, it increases our cortisol levels, and that for women who are going through perimenopause, especially, who are struggling with the hormonal shifts and the anxiety,
the inflammation as well,
the inflammation, alcohol and perimenopause can be a lethal combination. Add to that the fact that it also disturbs your sleep, and many of us are struggling with that too. I notice it's less so now because, again, I'm coming out the other side.
That I would agree
in
with,
that period, even if I had one glass of wine, 4 days later, I still claim it was a calculated risk. I wanted that one glass of wine. I wanted the connection with my partner, so I did it. But I knew that off the back of that, for up to about four days, I wasn't as on form as I am if I'm not drinking. My energy levels aren't the same. Tendency to be depressed. All of these things that you put down to perimenopause, they are symptoms of the perimenopause. But so many of us drink to help us get through the perimenopause. And that's what I was doing. And then I only saw when I stopped, it was making it 1,000 times worse.
I mean, you can joke around it, but there's some various things I've seen online with, obviously perimenopausal women who have gone to a spa to do a detox, and they're sitting in deck chairs and, in dressing gowns with some ridiculous, I don't know what it was, a glass of water or nothing at all, just a tisane, the herbal tea. And the friend comes up with great big bottle of wine, bashes the table, sits down with them, and is down there giggling like mad. But there's nothing worse than a drunk menopausal woman. If you're living it yourself, this, I think. I used to feel angrier.
Me too. Angrier. I do feel angry because I'm really sensitive to it now, because I drink. I hardly drink. I mean, what I do now is I'm on a mission. At the moment, I'm running an alcohol-free,
on a huge mission at the moment.
Challenge.
And she's really lovely because she doesn't make me feel guilty about having glasses.
I love it. But that is my big thing, is there's no shame. If anybody doesn't make it, if anybody's drinking on day 2, that's absolutely fine. Because I believe we have our reasons for doing it, you know, perimenopause or whatever your reasons are for having a glass of wine.
And the one thing that I don't cope very well with is a lot of sugar.
Yes.
And I find a lot of the non-alcoholic
are very
drinks
sugary.
Too sugary for me.
Yeah, and that causes inflammation too. And that causes inflammation.
I can't drink them at all. I find them awful, and they almost make me worse. I find it's not so much the alcohol. Now I'm the other side of the menopause. During the menopause itself and the perimenopause, I found it did used to make me quite angry, and my sleep was really disturbed. It doesn't disturb me as much now, but what's worse for me is salt and sugar. That's a process of deduction.
But have you tried having like a month completely off?
What, of everything?
Like alcohol?
So, no, I haven't ever.
Because that's the only thing I would say is, try. Just try to see the difference, because it actually gets worse for many people before it gets better. So a lot of the ladies that I'm working with at the moment, we're all not sleeping. It takes a while for all your dopamine levels and your hormones and everything to balance.
Do you compensate with things?
Well, many do. Like we always joke that it's like you maybe stop drinking the alcohol and then you find yourself shoving cakes down you,
that's the thing.
That is quite normal to start,
is it?
Because
then does that even
because there's that habitual thing of you just want
it evens out when you can't get into your jeans
but after a wee while it all balances out. Like all we try and do to start is don't drink, but it's really for many of us it's quite an eye-opener when you take it away completely. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had my spell where I've done complete abstinence. That's not for me either. But I'm in no doubt about how better you feel physically.
So right now on this challenge, how many days are you in?
Well, the challenge I'm running started. We're on week 2. I've not drank. I haven't had any alcohol since the 1st of January.
Right, you haven't. Okay, but the ladies on the challenge are slightly different. They're a bit less than that. Yeah. So we're 21st, 22nd of January, I think. So
they're on day 10.
So you're like double basically.
Yeah, I must be on.
You're double what they're on.
You too.
Because I don't like following trends, so I don't like doing dry January. No. Right? I just feel it's like, well, why should everyone's doing it?
And I think
they're not.
I think that's
one of my jobs is working in a bar, right? So I restart.
No, they're not all doing dry January.
They're certainly not doing dry January.
I think that's one of the reasons I can't commit. I could, but I don't want to commit to alcohol-free forever because I'm the same. I won't go into it here, but I think I've already spoken about it. I had, when I was younger, a very bad eating disorder, a very disordered relationship with food. And I had a food addiction, but I see now that in a way I sort of replaced the food with alcohol. But the way I got over that was nothing to do with food. My sort of methods are all around, it's not about going on a diet. It's not about just stripping the alcohol away and saying never again. It's about understanding why you're doing it in the first place. What needs it's filling.
What is it covering?
Yeah. And filling those in healthier ways.
Right.
But as soon as you put a big restriction on me, it's one thing for me to run these 28-day challenges. But as soon as you put a big thou must not eat cake, all I'll do is eat cake. So it's the same. So it's the same. I don't like the whole thou must not.
Let's say, because we don't want to get too preachy and we don't want to go on about it forever. And I think everyone could probably take on board the idea that it's pretty good for you to just have a break every now and then. How do we do it? How would we approach it, for example? Because David and I have tried in the past, to do a little break, maybe not like a month and things, but just let's do it. And and I've taken all the bottles out of the kitchen and put them downstairs. I literally only drink red wine and occasionally rosé. I don't drink spirits. I don't drink champagne. I don't drink beer. I don't drink a lot.
You're not.
But I really like my glass of red wine. I really do. But David will pretty much drink anything if it's available there. That makes him sound like an alcoholic. He's not. But he does like a little drink in the evening and things, and he'll do a beer or it'll be a gin and tonic, whatever. So I try and take all the temptation away. But we know it's just downstairs, right?
Yeah,
in the
so
cupboards
find
downstairs.
yourself
So you
doing
can
that
just
up.
go downstairs, right? We've tried the box wine scenario where it's downstairs, so you actually have to physically get off your bum, go down the stairs to get some, and thinking that might put him off or me off. It doesn't. If you really want something, you just go and get it, right? But so how would you? Let's do a practical note to the sort of tail end of this discussion. It'd be great to have some feedback from people as to what they've done, but in comments and things. But how would you advise us to start if we've never done anything like this before?
The first thing I would say hearing you speak is I don't know if I'm really speaking to you. You know, you sound like you've got things pretty healthy.
Just pretend it's not me,
but yeah,
it's somebody else.
But sort of my message is more if you are sat there, you think you're maybe using alcohol to cope with things like anxiety, depression, inflammation, it's worth just giving it a wee shot. That's all I'd say. And how I would try is I would say if you are drinking regularly, it's harder than you think. So you have to be very clear about what you want to do. If you leave the door open, like we've all done it, oh, well, maybe, we'll just cut down this week. Well, what does that even mean? So as soon as you get to 5, 6 o'clock, and then once you start
5 or 6, that's early.
Oh God!
Do you know when I
6 o'clock?
When I had my first daughter, there was a brilliant book by an American journalist, I think, and she actually wrote this book. And is 5 o'clock too early for a martini? Because she'd get to 5 o'clock with her baby and just be like, what the? It's been the whole day. Surely I could just have a little drink now, put the baby to bed. Sure. And so she found she was putting the baby to bed earlier, absolutely, so that she could have a martini. Absolutely. And there were a couple of comments at the time going, "Oh, I just did it in the teacup, so it just looked like I was having tea." But
in those years when Mac was little, I mean, I didn't get home from work at 5, but whenever I got home from work, it was the first thing I did was pour myself a glass of wine. But the first thing I would say is, I am speaking to people who are like middle lane drinkers. If anybody thinks they are alcohol dependent, seek advice. Go to your doctor. Don't just go cold turkey because it can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't apply to you and you fancy taking a wee break, be clear about what you want to do. So whether it's a month, whether it's a week, whether it's 3 days, whatever, but be very, very clear about what that window is.
Right.
Because as soon as you leave it open for negotiation, it's habitual. You know, if you've been drinking most days, you will get to 5, 6 o'clock or whatever time you have that glass of wine, and your brain
sees nothing else.
And that is hard.
So there has to be
So when those feelings come up, it has to be a case of no. We don't deal with. We don't listen to them because we have made a promise.
Do you think
for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, whatever?
And do you think it's important to sort of plan to do things?
Yes.
Be like occupied.
Yeah.
So that you're not doing the normal habitual stuff that you would do.
The other thing I would say is make it fun.
Uh-huh.
So hence, if you can do it with David, like, you know, if it was more of we're doing it as a challenge, right? We're doing this together, and you know, you've got the accountability thing going. Hence the reason
he's terrible though. He backs down straight away. He's got no.
Yes. But
I'm the willpower one. He's terrible.
But if you can get somebody else on board, make it fun. And I would, for me, for example, when I started, it was very much, the early evening was my witching hour. Yeah, so it was like, right, I'm going to plan ahead. I know that if I come straight in from work and go into the kitchen, I'll be tempted to pour a glass of wine. So I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to plan, this was in the summer, after work, I'm going for a bike ride. You know, I would plan things, planning, for example, to do something, to meet somebody early on a Sunday morning to go for a run.
Yeah.
Something that if I was drinking, I wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
So instead of seeing, oh God, I'm going to have to sit on Saturday night and not having a glass of wine, it's like, because I've got something exciting on Sunday
On
morning.
Sunday morning.
Or else I'd go and do something very different on Saturday
I think
night.
my issue, I'm going to put a spanner in the works here, but my issue is I get up anyway. I'm really good at that. I just got a biological clock.
Necessarily
think that I'm a good example. Because
yeah.
David said this morning, he walked out, I said something about, sleep patterns and, better sleep tonight. I slept really well. He didn't. But, and I said, yes, so tonight, no alcohol for either of us. And then, both of us will sleep better kind of thing. I sleep well anyway. But yeah, so he was like, yeah, but you get up anyway, no matter what. You're up at like 6:30 as if you've had a drink or not. And that's actually true, sadly. I've got one of those.
But there are loads of women out there who, especially in...
That doesn't mean that I don't want to take a break.
Perimenopause.
And I don't sleep even better.
Yeah. And there's loads of women out there who aren't exercising, who are feeling miserable, who are drinking to make themselves feel better. When you take the booze away, you're more inclined to have the energy to do some sport or exercise. That's something I see loads of women, because they are thinking, well, I can't just go home straight after work if I'm on and on. So instead I'm going to sign up for a yoga class, or I'm going to go to the gym. And my saying is always, build a life you don't need food or alcohol to escape from. Yeah. And that's what it's about. When you take it away, there is a void. Yeah. There is a big fat void.
So like not the pub quiz, for example.
No.
That's not going to help, is it, really? Do you know what I mean? That's really not.
Although I do those things now. But that's what's exciting, is it?
Or be the driver. Be the designated driver if you're going out. I think that's always quite a good one.
You actually see, when you take it away, that a lot of the stuff that we do for fun isn't that fun. Just sitting around watching telly with Clive or going to the pub. It's like, once it's not there, it's like, it forces you to actually start doing the stuff you want to do.
I did hear in that podcast at one point, he said, when it gets to the point in the evening when somebody starts repeating the same thing they said to you 5-10 minutes ago,
it's time to go.
It's time to go. Yeah. Haven't we all been there when that's happened?
And when you're one of those
kids, and when you're one of them there, you're just like, oh my goodness.
And when I've had a drink in me, I'm one of them, and I love being in the middle of that. But when you're sober, you realise, actually, I would be better going home now and get some sleep.
Yeah. I do remember years and years and years ago when I lived down where I live, and I would go out occasionally, super occasionally, with my group of friends up in a ski resort. And we'd go out, like, it's rare, but it was like maybe a couple of times a season. We go out to where I'm now working, right, at the Doudou nightclub in Val d'Isère. And we would go out there, but I wouldn't drink because I was driving back down again. But I would be very nice and I'd wait. So I'd party and blah, 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 until about 2:33 in the morning.
Well, that's good going.
I know. And without alcohol in the system. And then I'd ferry everyone home because I'm nice like that. And they were in such a state. So I used to think of it as being really funny. The only thing that was really annoying is when you get the clingy drunks, particularly the men, right? The clingy drunks, and you can't get rid of them, and you're not drunk and you're really sober. So it's just like, but it's quite a different experience doing that. But it can be really funny when you're watching other people like that. But anyway,
to a certain point.
But I think that comment was when people start repeating themselves, that's the time to go.
Yeah. And when you are on a challenge, if you're doing it and it's new to you, I wouldn't advise putting yourself in those situations to start.
And maybe not putting it out. I know you do because it's your business to encourage people. But I'm not sure that it's helpful to put it out there that you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? Where quite a lot of people have put it out there. I'm doing dry January and made it quite a public thing.
See, I'm the opposite.
I think that would help me.
I think it is.
If you fall off it, you feel even more guilty.
That's why it helps people stay on.
Oh, really?
And again, back to that, there's no shame. There shouldn't be any shame around this. There's no wine.
So you think it would help?
Yes, I say put it out there because I have been in a situation where alcohol is one of those things where, like, if you say to somebody, I've stopped smoking, everybody would say, well done. If you say, I'm not drinking, your mates go, come
Oh, yes,
Have a glass.
that's so true.
If you're remotely tempted, I have been in situations where it has actually been hard not to drink because my friends are like, "Come on, you're not
Just
going to leave me
one.
drinking on my own. Come on,
Just
share a
have
bottle."
one.
Yeah.
Like,
So I actually think it's easier to go, no. The best thing I did was tell people the truth, was say, I love wine, but at the moment it doesn't like me. My anxiety levels are through the roof. I really want to have a break. And then my friends understood.
Yeah.
But unless I was very clear, I found people were always trying to persuade me to drink, understandably so, because I was always the one you could count on to go around and have a drink. Come to Jean's house, she's always got wine. I mean, I still always have wine, but
doesn't drink it anymore.
But it's like, people didn't want to know me as the non-drinker. They wanted their drinking buddy.
Well, I'm going to do this as a little bit of a closing party trick. So this is our house game. I know you can't see this on the podcast, but David always buys a house present at Christmas.
I think this is a lovely
gift. So this one is a little box of cards. If you're listening, you can see this on the YouTube. Well, I've got shiny eyes in YouTube. And it's called Let's Get Closer, and it's called Table Talk. So the idea is you put it on the table, and then randomly you pick a card out. So do you want to pick a card out? I'll read it because you haven't got your glasses on.
Oh yeah, you have to read
I'll read it. What is your favourite part of the day and why?
Ooh, am I allowed to have two?
Go on.
They both involve a similar thing.
And it's not a glass of wine, apparently.
No, they both actually involve bed.
Is this going to be X-rated?
No,
Okay.
not at all. I love waking up in the morning, and that's something like, look, that's the difference. That happens when I don't drink, because I used to wake up filled with dread.
Yeah.
Now I love that feeling of waking up in the morning. I wake up naturally, usually, feeling excited about the day ahead. My little golden hour where I journal, I meditate. It's just my little space.
You get up first.
I love that. Yeah, I love that little time to myself first thing. And I also, it's the same the other end of the day. I love that going to bed and just going into a nice clean sheets. And my head hits the pillow, and again I breathe, and sometimes I journal, and I just feel very content and thankful for my day. So probably either end of the day. I mean, loads of lovely spots in the middle.
Nice.
I do love those little moments. I look forward to it.
I'm very similar in the sense that I think my favourite time of the day is when I come down. So I always get up first, like 99% of the time I'm first. Even on holiday, I'm up the first. And I come downstairs and I try not to put any lights on first thing in the morning. This is my little ritual. And I put candles on.
Oh, yeah.
And I spend a few moments sort of tending to the nest. So I'll water some plants, I'll light candles, I'll maybe put some incense on. I set up my yoga mat. And then I sit, and I just sit and watch the sun's usually not up particularly in the winter months, but I watch as the light starts to appear behind the mountains, and I just feel that everything is kind of right with the world. That's my favourite time of the day. Yeah, definitely. We've got a dog in the background about to come over to us because he's whinging because we've been here too long. So what is your favourite time of the day? Have a think about it, because honestly I think that's a super important thing, just to cultivate those moments. I think that's
simple moments. Moments. Oh, Roger's making a noise in the background. I think that's our
cue to stop.
But it's been lovely to chat. I hope I haven't come across as preachy.
No, you haven't.
That is the last thing
you haven't.
I
actually really admire you, Jill. I think it's.
I am.
It needs a lot of strong will to do what you do. It's very hard to do, and I admire you for doing it.
And I don't do it all the time either. I'm not claiming to be any angel. But I just want to put it out there because I didn't know how different things could be if I just changed my drinking habits. And I'm sure there are other people sitting there who, like me, have got no idea. So that's why I like to speak about it, in case it can help.
Well, there you go.